Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Friday. It's Daryl here. It is bright and freaking early, man. It's 3 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. As I was getting ready to do this video, I'm thinking about how I'm feeling this morning, and I realized that I've mentioned anxiety quite a bit in past videos, and I'm starting to wonder, this is the thing, the better my life gets, the happier that I am, the less problems and issues that I have in my life, the more that I move ahead, the more anxiety I have. And I'm starting to wonder if it's becoming an issue. Here's the reason I'm talking about it this morning. Yesterday's video. To say I have some anxiety about it is an understatement. I have not checked. I told you guys I usually do not check the comments or anything, the views, until after I do this video, because I don't want to influence what I'm going to talk about this day, and then I'll check them later. I wait until the views start to come down a little bit, and the comments slow down, and then I'll go back and check like the overall picture of what people said. And I get notifications when each one of you comment. I've got my phone set up so that I get a notification of your little profile pic or your initial or whatever, and who's commenting. And I have been getting comments non-freaking stop. And I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. Yesterday I did that video about Beau the Fifth Column, or about Belle, and I spoke from my heart. I love Beau. From what I know of Belle, I think she's great, but I wanted to give my initial impression of, going back to the channel after some time away, what I thought, my honest opinion, and I don't know where the chips fell. I have this nightmare vision of losing like hundreds of subscribers yesterday. I don't know if they're going to be good, good comments, bad comments. I haven't checked yet, and the anxiety is killing me. All right, let's talk about today. Matthew Perry. There's stories all over the place. I'll have links right down below, the best links that I found that describe basically what's going on in this case right now. Matthew Perry passed away some time ago from ketamine, or results of ketamine, and being in a jacuzzi or a pool. And 2 doctors have been charged, and 5 people in all have been charged. I'm not going to really get into all the specifics. There's stories all over the place. You guys have probably heard the stories, but it reminded me a lot of, I've been clean and sober coming on 18 years. I've been clean and sober since October 23rd of 2006. And it reminded me of a couple really specific things. And I want to talk about that. It reminded me of a doctor that I was seeing. It reminded me a lot of these doctors that are arrested. And Matthew Perry himself. Now, let me start right there. Matthew Perry, in these stories, the doctors, this is the worst part, this is the most stunning part of this story as I was reading it, what the doctors texted about Matthew Perry. The doctors' actual texts that were recovered said, "I wonder how much this moron is willing to pay," in reference to Matthew Perry. And it comes down to the numbers were something like these vials of ketamine sold, where they were buying, the doctors were getting them for $12 a piece. They were selling them to Matthew Perry for somewhere around the area of $2,000 a piece. And then in the story down below, it says, I believe it says they sold, I lost track. I think it was $50,000, 20 vials for $50,000, something like that, which it came out to like $2,000 a piece, I believe. And it reminded me a lot of things that went on in my life. Let me start right there. When I first started going to NA and AA meetings, I really thought I was different. I think all addicts do think they're different. I got a little more willpower. I'm a little smarter. I got a little more, I don't have as much, you build up, when you take something, you build up immunity to it, you build up tolerance to it. And I always believed that I had, incredible tolerance. I could take massive, just because my size and my strength. And once I started to go to NA meetings and AA meetings, I realized how much I was lying to myself and how much we were all, it was a comforting thing to see that I was so much like all the other addicts, that I had a disease, and the symptoms were similar in every person in that room. And it made me realize I wasn't different. I wasn't a freak. I wasn't extra smart. I wasn't extra stupid. I just had a disease. And every person had a story just like me. And that was very comforting. It was an epiphany, a moment of clarity. Okay, let me talk about this. Drug addicts are not stupid by any. A lot of what I found. The weird thing is a lot of addicts are artistic, are actors, dancers, artists, musicians. I don't know why that is, but they're not stupid by any stretch of the imagination. And I thought about Matthew Perry and the way these doctors reference him. I wonder how much this moron will pay. Well, let me tell you this. The same thing was happening to me buying street drugs. I remember this one instance where I was buying heroin, and I meet this guy every single day. I had to meet him, and in my mind, I knew how much money I was spending. I was spending about the same as Matthew Perry spent on these, almost the exact amount, about $1,000 a week. And I remember meeting my dealer at a baseball, I believe it was a softball game, and he drove up in a brand new BMW. All right, and it had the rims and the tires and everything. And I was like, and I would usually kind of, it was like we both pretended we were friends, but I was just giving him money, And I remember him saying, I remember looking at his car and commenting on his rims and tires. I was like, wow, dude, those are beautiful wheels. And he just looked at me, and this is what he said. This was 20 years ago, and I still remember this. He goes, thanks, you bought them. Yeah, just point blank, not even, it didn't, he didn't care. He wasn't concerned that would anger me or make me think about the money. No, thanks, you bought them. Just thanks, sucker. And it reminded me of this doctor. And here's the thing, addicts are not stupid. I knew the money I was spending. But in my mind, I rationalized that I knew I was spending a ridiculous, an exorbitant amount of money. All my money was going towards, but in my mind, I would rationalize it. This is what I need to function. This is more important to me than food or sleep. And at that point, it really was. I could not get out of bed without this stuff, And so in my mind, it was a necessity. It was like food. It was like rent, And if I only spent $80 or $200 in one day, well, that was good, And, it's a necessity. It's something I need, and that's just the way I looked at it. And I remember this dealer saying that to me, and at the time, it bothered me subconsciously, the way that he was playing me for a sucker, the way that he was just making a living off my addiction. But I didn't look at it as an addiction at the time. I looked at it as him providing a service, a necessity for me. A commodity, he was just like a store or a bank or something, it was just the price of living, that's what it was to me. That's how I rationalized it. And I'm sure that's how Matthew Perry rationalized it. He was no moron, I'm sure he wasn't. I'm sure he knew exactly I knew that he knew he was making people rich, that he was paying too much, but to him, it was convenient, it was what he needed, and it was the best way to go about living day to day, existing. And that's just, when you get to that point where you need to do this kind of thing just to feel that you just to exist, just to get up in the morning. I look back and I realize what a problem, the huge problem I had in my life. Okay, let me talk about the doctor now. Okay, I had 2 back surgeries. Now, I'm not blaming the doctor by any stretch of the imagination here. I was an addict long before I got the back surgeries and before I became an opiate addict. I was addicted to cocaine and crack long before this. I already know this video is not getting monetized at this point, but I have to say these things, so let the chips fall where they may. I was an addict, since I was born, but, I remember going back to when I was 14, 15, 16, starting to use coke and crack and all that, and I didn't get the back surgery until I was like 28, I think. So I'm not blaming him. I remember I had very bad back injuries from driving a truck, driving hardwood flooring, a flatbed, and carrying hardwood flooring in and out of brand new mansions here in Connecticut all day long. Hardwood, walnut, oak flooring, like 160-pound, 280-pound bundles. And it ruptured. It actually herniated the disc. Then it ruptured the disc. And then the disc broke in two and moved down my spinal column and actually wedged against the nerves. And I got what they call drop foot. And that's when the doctor saw me. And I was in a lot of pain, granted, but I remember the amount of drugs that he prescribed to me. It was like 5 different things. Instant release oxy, regular oxy, 30 milligrams, 60 milligram, 40, whatever. This was over 20 years ago, so excuse me if I'm getting some of those milligrams wrong. And Vicodin, just a Percocet, all these. I remember going to fill this prescription. I could barely walk. And I went into the drugstore, and the druggist, the guy behind the counter, just looked at me, and he said, "We can't fill this. I got to call the doctor first. This is there's 5 different." The hardest opiates on this list that I'm supposed to give you, and it was like 3 months supply of each. It was a ridiculous amount of drugs. And he called up the doctor, and the doctor okayed it. Now here's the thing where it gets weird. I was going back, I got addicted, of course, to these drugs. I was cross addicted at that point. What I was doing at first actually was selling the Oxycontin and the Vicodin to get money to buy coke and crack. Until I actually I couldn't live without the opiates, and then I started using them, and then I started buying heroin and coke and crack. So it went from coke and crack to getting the pills and selling the pills to buy coke and crack, and then getting addicted to the pills and the coke and crack, and then getting addicted to heroin and crack at the very end. In a very short period of time, I went to hell. Here's the thing I remember. I was at the doctor almost once a month, after these 2 operations, and just so the doctor would prescribe me Vicodin weekly, like 20 to 40 pills weekly. I would call up, I was supposed to take not more than 4 a day. So I had it figured out to, the very most I could take. And then I would call them back at the very minute that I was supposed to be, that I could be out legitimately of pills. And that was about 7 days. And I would call back. I would take all these pills in one day, in 24 hours. This is something I'm not proud of looking back. And then I would use other stuff for the next 6 days, and then I would call the doctor again on the 7th day and get another prescription. I'd take them all in one day, then I'd go on the streets for next 6. You see what I'm saying here? Here's the thing. I remember going to these appointments, and I was there 50, 60, 70 times over the period of like 5 years after these operations because I was hurt so badly. And I remember a drug rep coming in. Now, here's the thing. Let me back up for a second. My doctor, he was a weird kind of guy. He was, he used to ask me about my girlfriend. I didn't know if he had a sex addiction or what, but he was creepy. He was one of those guys that would like cheat on his wife and stuff. I got that kind of impression. Like he would always talk about women. Like when I was in the room, like we're supposed to be talking about my back, but he would start asking me about my girlfriend and if she's hot and how she's built and what I do with her. He was a creep, man. And I would see this drug rep coming in, and it's like they knew this doctor because they would send this chick was this woman was freaking gorgeous, just like maybe 22 years old and built like unbelievably in a business suit and just stacked and packed and oh my god, long hair, gorgeous. And she's the rep that they would send in from the drug company. And I remember looking around his office, and there were all these like swag from the drug company. His pens, his all of his notepads, his chairs, his some of his equipment, all the stuff in his office had the label the drug company. And I started realizing, and then she started kidding around. Are you ready for our lunch? She would take him out to lunch, and then what else? I don't know. I'm not insinuating anything, but she would flirt with him and take him out to lunch. And he had all this swag from these drug companies all over his office. So he was getting what you would call kickbacks, all sorts of kickbacks, including the drug rep herself for prescribing these drugs. And I was just one patient out of God knows hundreds or thousands of patients that this guy had that he was prescribing this exorbitant amount of drugs to. This was back in 1998 to 2002 about. So I don't know if it's still going on. And, this guy could be in jail for all I know, and he probably should be. I'm not blaming him for my addiction. But I think looking back, what he was doing was he was clearly unethical, from his questions and his conversation in the office to what he said to me as a guy. I could imagine what he was saying to the women patients, what he was saying to me, and the drug rep and the kickbacks. And like I said, I'm not blaming him. It was, my addiction is my own responsibility. It's my own fault. I did what I did. Nobody twisted my arm. I'm not blaming him, but there was this doctor that was, that was probably looking at me as a sucker. He knew I was addicted. He knew I was going through these pills like that. I'd go into the office smelling like alcohol. I would down a half pint of Jägermeister before I walked into my appointment every week because I ran out of pills and I'd start to shake. So I would drink alcohol. So I went in there stinking of alcohol. This guy knew I had I'm sure he knew I had a problem. I looked like hell. I had a haircut. My teeth were all missing. My clothes, I had on the same clothes for 5 days. And I'm in there every month and calling up every week for more prescriptions. Come on. Talk about me looking stupid. Tell me he knew what was going on. So that's some thoughts I had. The Matthew Perry links will be down below. I'm gonna take a look at your comments from Beau, the fifth column, and I pray to God that you guys aren't being too harsh on me, because I feel bad about my critique on Belle, and I don't know where these chips fell. I don't know if I lost a lot of subscribers, if I gained subscribers. If in between, I don't know, but I got a whole boatload of comments last night. I heard my phone was ringing nonstop with you guys' comments coming in, and I'm a little nervous to look at them this morning. So, we'll see. Have a good Friday.